And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
The Liberty Podcast is brought to you by Proven Arms and Outfitters, specializing in rifles, pistols, tactical gear, and more. Learn more at ProvenOutfitters.com.
Hey, welcome back. It's the Liberty Podcast. Today is August 1, 2024. Believe it or not, we are 78 days away from the start of early voting in North Carolina, 97 days removed from Election Day 2024. The countdown is on. It's getting real, folks. As always, we remind you that the Liberty Podcast is presented weekly by Proven Arms and Outfitters. They have the rifles, the tactical gear. They have everything you need to be a law-abiding citizen protected by the Second Amendment. Proven Arms and Outfitters. Well, everybody, if you watch just the mainstream media, you know one thing. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump July 13 in Butler, Pennsylvania, well, it might have as well have never happened. It literally has dropped off their radar. In fact, search engines such as Google have all but scrubbed it Soviet style from their search algorithms. They've gotten caught on it, and they're probably going to have to undo that little debacle. But you know what? There are numbers of people, including members of Congress and some very attentive and persistent independent journalists who aren't letting this go. In fact, some of them are concerned that another attempt on Trump's life is certainly not out of the question. First, I'd like to draw your attention to the Benny Johnson Show, the Benny Show, as it's actually known, a podcast with over 2 million YouTube followers and north of 8 million across all the podcasting platforms. The Benny Thompson Show. He and I will urge you now and at the end of this segment to go watch this podcast from July 26th, which was last Friday, July 26th. He traveled with his crew and drone cameras and other high-tech production equipment to the site of the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. They returned there along with two very expert congressmen on matters of surveillance and sniper fire. That would be Eli Crane, the congressman from Arizona, and Corey Mills from Florida. These guys are both retired military veterans. In fact, Eli was a multiply deployed Navy SEAL with sniper expertise. So they accompanied Benny to Butler. And what they discovered there, after spending hours and hours looking at every angle, walking the grounds, are a number of very alarming things. I'll give you the top three. Number one, the giant water tower in the immediate vicinity of the rally grounds was the highest point in the area for miles around and was never guarded by Secret Service. They didn't have one man up there. And this is a huge water tower. As Benny points out, you could have had 10 guys up there. They would have had a 360-degree view of everything. It would have rendered any type of activity from that roof occupied by Thomas Crooks. It would have rendered him a sitting duck in a heartbeat. Number two, they discovered a fence line, chain link fence, in even closer proximity to the podium where Trump spoke than the roof where Crooks was positioned. And not only was this a flimsy chain link fence, all the people on the other side of it had never gone through security. Now, thankfully, they were all law-abiding Trump supporters who were probably surprised at how close they were to the action without going through the hassle of security. One of them even rode up on a horse with a Trump flag. You can't make it up. Along this chain link fence line is a gaping opening that anyone could have wiggled through unless they happened to be about the size of Congressman Jerry Nadler. Then that might have been a little difficult. Okay, so, and then the third item is the famous roof above the AGR Glass Research Building, AGR. Remember how they talked about, gee, how in the world did this kid manage to navigate along that roof? The Secret Service and the FBI told us it was very sloped. Well, the congressman, Crane and Mills and Benny went up on the roof, and they showed us that it's about the least sloped roof you would hope to encounter. Very easy to stand on, walk around on. So the sloped roof theory was blown out the window by these guys with just a couple of minutes of video. I urge you to go to the Benny Show on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. Watch the July 26th show, an hour and a half, but time well spent. You will learn many things that the mainstream media have chosen to ignore in the days since the assassination attempt. You know who else is not letting go of this story? Dan Bongino. He too is a radio host, has done tremendously well. He is available through podcasting platforms as well. Dan Bongino has really strong sources within the Secret Service. Why? He spent 12 years in the Secret Service, 99 through 2011, in the thick of it. Before that, he was a New York City police officer. This guy has sources in and out of law enforcement and the Secret Service and FBI like you wouldn't believe. And he is enraged, as are his former colleagues in the Secret Service. I'll just quote to you one of the things he said about the way they're feeling right now. He said, they're horrified. They're horrified at what the Secret Service has become, as evidenced by all the things that they didn't do, that they didn't think about, that they didn't plan for on July 13th. And then in the aftermath, by the absolutely disgusting and deceptive testimony under oath, first by the now ex-head of the Secret Service, the DEI hire, and the new replacement, Mr. Jarhead, who is nothing but a career Secret Service apologist. He went toe-to-toe with Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, and Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, in a July 31 congressional hearing. He was unapologetic. In fact, at one point, he was begging for our understanding of how victimized and how hurt his agency is by what has happened, how traumatized these poor people are. And let's keep in mind, as everyone will tell you, Dan Bongino, Benny Thompson, this is not an indictment of every person who works in the Secret Service. Obviously, there are many fine and dedicated and qualified people who were probably scratching their heads and still are about what in the heck happened and what has become of this agency that has one job, and that's to potentially take a bullet for whoever they're protecting, first and foremost, the President of the United States and or a former president who is a candidate for the office. Donald Trump, July 13, Butler, Pennsylvania. Let's take a moment and listen to a couple of clips from Bongino's July 31 show, where he shares some of the concerns about what his sources are saying inside the Secret Service in real time.
My Secret Service colleagues I work with, where nothing like this ever happened at our advances, are horrified at Ron Rowe, ashamed of what this agency has become. I want you to understand that the guys I worked with, and I'm not talking about a small cadre of them, I'm talking about a big group of former agents, are on fire about what happened here. They are horrified at what's going on with this agency. No accountability yesterday. It was faux accountability. I'm embarrassed about what happened. We have no excuses. And then he goes on to make 1,000 excuses. The locals should have been there. The locals should have done this. The locals should have done that. It's your freaking job. Has anybody been fired? Nobody's been fired. It's been over 2 weeks. Is anyone going to get fired for a murder scene and getting President Trump shot in the freaking head? Is anyone going to lose their job? Folks, I've tried to explain this to you over and over, and I'm sorry, I'm not letting this story go. President Trump was almost killed, and we've got people who are terrible still in charge of the Secret Service that are still putting this guy in danger. I'm not just going to dust this off. Here's Josh Hawley asking the key question. Who was the site agent from that day? The Secret Service works on a counterpart system. You have detail agents with Trump all the time. Field officers around the world have explained this many times. When you go to a site in the district of that field office, the field office, which works every day with the local law enforcement, has a person at that site that handles that site. How is this person still have a job? How? Josh Hawley wants to know, who is this person? Why the name's not classified. You want to share it behind closed doors? Fine. Why do these people still have a job? They failed. I did this for a living. Here is who made the decision to put their fingerprint on this failed security plan that led to a murder and multiple shootings. The site agent at the scene from the Pittsburgh field office and a supervisor who did the walkthrough, likely from that Pittsburgh field office. That's who. There's no other people involved.
Well, Bongino's not letting go of this story either. His sources are probably begging him not to. And there's an allusion to this concern that Trump may not be out of the woods yet, that their level of incompetence may still pose a threat to his life as he continues to campaign in these final weeks leading up to Election Day, November 5. You know who else worries about that? Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, prominent podcaster and radio host, founder of Turning Point USA, the campus activism organization that has flourished under his leadership. Charlie Kirk hosts events, big events with big gatherings in big arenas. Last Friday in West Palm Beach, Turning Point USA hosted the Believers Summit. Keynote speaker, Donald J. Trump, just around the corner from his Mar-a-Lago. Charlie Kirk says that in this calendar year alone, they have hosted Trump at 3 of their events. This was the 3rd of 2024. This came only 13 days after the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. This is at an indoor venue in West Palm Beach, Florida. Trump is the speaker. Charlie Kirk comes away from that event and shares with his audience, and others have picked up on it, like Benny Johnson in a subsequent podcast. Kirk is concerned that he saw no increase in security for Trump at his event on July 26th. In fact, he thought it was less secure than ever, than any event they had been to. People were coming and going, undeterred from the secured areas, including members of his own staff. That would be Kirk's staff. He came away from that event very concerned about the safety and security of Donald Trump. He said it on the air. He'll keep saying it. We all need to keep pounding away on it. And let's hope, let's pray that it doesn't take another attempt on his life. And remember, a life was lost needlessly in Butler, Pennsylvania. Let's hope that more citizens attending Trump rallies aren't subject to being slaughtered by gunfire as well in the days ahead. Let us continue to pray, and let us continue to demand accountability from the Secret Service. You know, it's too late to just unwind the Secret Service right now. We're stuck with them through this campaign season. But some kind of major reform has got to be in the offing if we can just get through without another bloodbath on our hands here in late 2024. Boy, oh boy, that's tough to talk about, you know. I mean, the images of, we're seeing more and more images of the 13th. And one of the other things that Benny Johnson brings to light is this independent video by a resident of Butler that showed all the frantic behavior of these local law enforcement searching for Thomas Crooks, the gunman, just moments before he opened fire with 8 rounds. It was a circus over there by that building. People were milling around. The cops paid no attention to them. They were looking for somebody, one guy, and they'd lost track of him. And they'd known about him. Now we're learning for 90 minutes. We're learning that he had been there on days prior to the assassination attempt. This guy may very well be a useful idiot, but he was a very trainable and obedient useful idiot, this Thomas Crooks, who is now thankfully dead. One to the head. All right, let's move over to the meat and potatoes of the campaign season. Now, ever since the coup that sent Joe Biden packing as the candidate for re-election occurred, and the coronation of Kamala, we've been hearing that she got an instant bump in the polling, and that, boy, it's neck and neck between Donald Trump and Kamala, as you might expect it to be, by the way. I mean, we all understand that these polls are subject to the ebbs and flows of current events happening in real time. We get that. But let's let some time go by and see what these polls end up doing. But there's one source of gauging the public sentiment that I recommend to you highly. His name is Rich Barris. He's actually based out of New Bern, North Carolina. He runs an operation called the Big Data Poll, and he comes to you via handle of the People's Pundit. I suggest you go find him. So what his organization does is they specialize in surveys. In other words, they can survey the public for consumer goods companies. They can survey the public to detect new trends in consumer activity, in all kinds of areas, in home buying and how people are investing, you name it. And so his stock in trade is the expertise in the broader understanding of the audience. And he takes that same approach to surveying citizens ahead of an election. Now, he just released his big data poll on the Harris-Trump head-to-head with all kinds of other variables built into it. Currently, as of the release on July 31, he shows, under the question, if the election were held today, Trump holding a 1.2 point lead over Kamala. Very narrow, not surprising. But here is what's really revealing about what Rich's research is showing, apart from that one data point. And he breaks this thing down by gender, by age groups, by race, ethnicity, the whole thing. It is masterful. I suggest you go to either the Big Data Poll online or the People's Pundit and pour through this data on your own. We'll share some of it with you here in a moment. Now, here's what he discovered. Donald Trump holds a slight lead over Kamala nationally in the wake of Joe Biden's exit. All right, that is not surprising. But here's the thing. This is really important. Former President Trump's image has been consistently improving over the last few years, and for the first time since his inauguration in January 2017, okay? We're talking about 4+ years ago. For the first time since January 2017, both his favorability and approval ratings are major positive, majority positive. For the first time in over 4 years, he's ascending in favorability and approval among the same people who the big data poll is talking to about how they would vote. So what they say about these other facets of the process of understanding the true sentiment of the voter is actually quite revealing and should scare the hell out of the Harris campaign, such as it is. Get this. Overall, 52.2% approve of how Trump handled the job as president. Now, when he was president, a lot of people disapproved because they just hated him. They said, can't stand him, never Trump, never Trump. Now it's 52.2% approve of how he handled the job, to include 32.3% who strongly approve, a third. That compares to 45.2% who disapprove. Now, Vice President Harris's image and approval ratings also approved, though much more modestly. 46.5% approve of the job, so-called, that she is doing as vice president, but 49.2% disapprove of the job she's doing as vice president. So if that's the case, then you would think that those who actually make it to the polls, early voting or otherwise, and who are thinking clearly about what their gut tells them, what their emotions tell them, and what the facts tell them, that they know she's been a disastrous vice president for a number of reasons, mostly due to her dereliction of duty as the person who was supposed to secure the southern border and stop millions from crossing it, which she has failed to do, hasn't even tried to do. You can't fail when you don't try. She just hasn't tried. So she was just AWOL on that count, right? So this is really interesting. On all factors, too, issue by issue, he breaks it down. Regardless of how you intend to vote, who do you trust more to handle the following issues? Economy and jobs. Trump, 48% to Harris, 41%. That's a gap. Inflation and the cost of living. Trump, 48%, Harris, 40%. Get this one. Immigration and border security. Trump, 51%. Harris, 36.9%, so give her 37%. 51 to 37. Abortion rights and restrictions. Okay, abortion rights and restrictions. Who do you trust to handle each of these issues? Trump's up on that count somehow. So I don't understand that one at all, because obviously he's anti-abortion 100%. But in the areas that really count, I misread that. I'm sorry. Harris 50 to 36 on abortion. Harris 50 to 36 on abortion. One of only about, let me count here, 3 categories in which she is more trusted than Trump. And the one category that the Democrats think they can win the race on, abortion rights and restrictions. Wrong. Anyway, big data poll. Got to get to it. Got to understand it. Got to spend some time with it. Really great, impeccable research by Rich Barris. Well, I was praying this day would never come. I've had a long history with the Olympic Games, going back to my days as a young journalist, newspaper reporter. I first covered an Olympic Games in 1988 in Seoul. That's in South Korea for you Democrats. 1988 through, I believe, 2004 was my run as an Olympic chronicler and observer. One thing we could have never imagined in those years, and really up until the present, was that the International Olympic Committee, the keeper of the flame, the keeper of the games, would allow transgenderism to creep into and poison the sanctity of Olympic competition. But guess what? It happened on August 1st in Paris, site of the current Olympic Games. It happened at the women's boxing venue. It happened in a bout between an Algerian and an Italian. Here's what happened. The bout was over in 46 seconds. The Italian essentially threw in the towel. She had taken a punch to her face that was so powerful, she later said she'd never felt such pain, and she's a boxer. The guy who unleashed the punch is a guy. I got ahead of myself. The guy competing in women's boxing for Algeria is a guy. In 2023, he was banned from the World Boxing Championships because the International Boxing Federation imposed gender tests on all of the competitors. He flunked. He's a guy competing in women's boxing. But in Paris, the International Olympic Committee has decided to look the other way. They are going to go woke. They're going to make the games broke. And this Algerian male competing in women's boxing has advanced in Olympic boxing competition. The Italian female, a very accomplished female boxer, obviously she qualified for the Olympics. She's eliminated by one punch to the head from the fist of a guy. And that's what has become to these Olympic Games. And I fear it's going to happen again in other sports. The International Olympic Committee is going to deliberately destroy this once sacred institution, the Olympic Games, which have been with us and part of our culture over the course of the globe since 1896. 1896. Here we are in 2024, and we're seeing something that was unimaginable for all the years that I was around the games, and unimaginable to, I would say, the majority of Olympic athletes as well, certainly. Happened in Paris. Unbelievable. Okay, we got to wrap up with some much more upbeat news, and I'm very excited to tell you about this. First, let me give you a little background. You may recall, going back to early June 2024, that many of us in the Moore County environs were shocked when, out of the blue, an event was popped up on our social media platforms and in our various electronic inboxes, advising us that on August 15th, there would be a symposium, a workshop on the campus of Sandhills Community College. In the interest of full disclosure, I am a member of the Board of Trustees of the Sandhills Community College and proud to be. However, on the date that this event was announced, no one on the board, at least none of the trustees that I know, were aware of it. Not one of us. What's the event on August 15th on the campus? It is a symposium led by a diversity, equity, and inclusion thought leader named Raven Solomon, who is coming to town to explain to business owners how they need to bend to the will and the wishes of Generation Z employees so that they can keep them on the job and keep them happy, because that's what it's about, right? It's not about productivity. It's not about customer service. It's about whether or not your Gen Z snowflakes are feeling good about their job on a given day. So this diversity, equity, and inclusion person is coming to the campus. The event was created without any proper collaboration. It is co-sponsored by the college and the Moore County Chamber of Commerce and the Sandhills of the Southern Pines Housing and Land Trust, which is a topic for a whole other podcast. Now, the word goes down. This event is coming. There's nothing we can do about it. But I say there is something that we can do about it. We can go out and find one of the most expert voices on the adversity of diversity, equity, inclusion, how it's destroying corporations, compromising their sales, alienating their customers, what it's doing at the university and college level, how it is dumbing down every aspect of hiring faculty and of the courses that students are taking, and how they're graded and assessed for their work. It's doing that. It's also infecting government. Look what it's done to the Secret Service. Look what it's done to the military. Look what it's done to the office of the Vice President of the United States, who was heralded by Joe Biden as a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging leader when he named her as his vice presidential running mate. True story. Check it out. So, I mentioned the adversity of diversity. That is actually the title of a book, authored by a scholar and academic named Dr. Carol Swain, who holds a PhD from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She holds 5 degrees. She has been a professor at both Princeton and Vanderbilt universities. The last run at Vanderbilt was for 18 years until she retired in 2017. She's written or edited 12 books. She is one of the most vocal protagonists, antagonists, whatever word you want to use, of DEI. She says it's unconstitutional. It's divisive. She can tell you what true racism and poverty looks like. She knows it because she lived it. A group of citizens reached out to Dr. Carol Swain and said, "Are you available on August 15th to come to Moore County?" By golly, the answer was yes. And now she's coming. August 15th, mark your calendar, 6:30 p.m. The venue will be the Sandhills Classical Christian School in Whispering Pines. It is a free event, admission free, ladies and gentlemen. Come one, come all. Let's pack the place. Let's show folks in this community that we don't have tolerance for DEI in our schools, in our businesses, anywhere. And Dr. Carol Swain is going to walk us through that in her eloquent and professional way. She is a wonderful American. She has lived a remarkable life. You can see her often on various cable television networks, and as well as other podcasts that I've been mentioning today. There's podcasts everywhere, and she's on a lot of them as well. So remember what I have told you, August 15th. It's a Thursday night, 6:30. Sandhills Classical Christian. Go to eventbrite.com. Eventbrite. EVENTBRITE. Eventbrite.com. Search for the August 15th presentation by Dr. Swain and register your name so we can know who's coming. That's exciting news, folks. It's going to be the DEI Smackdown on August 15th, right in Moore County. Well, I'm going to say goodbye from my undisclosed rustic mountain location. I'll probably be here again the next time we see one another. Until then, thank you as always for joining us here on the Liberty Podcast. We'll look forward to doing this again next time.